NoPixel is one of the biggest RP servers, especially in the English sphere of things, and it's been on fire, and not in a good way. For the last couple of months, like more and more accusations have been coming out, and I'm going to go through all of that, but the latest thing that just happened is it's now getting sued for hundreds of thousands of dollars by one of the developers. But to start it all off, you had one of the biggest people on the server, RatedEpicz, having this happen on stream.
Why am I'm perma-banned? What did I do?
And still to this day, no one really knows what he does. There's obviously, he was being a creep towards women behind the scenes, but no one has really come out and said exactly what he's done, because apparently it was like a lot of people. And we know it was bad because the server owner said that he would never ban Rated. He's too big of a draw, so why would he ever like get rid of one of his moneymakers? But then he got permanently banned, and all of his friends in the scene cut ties with him. Like, he's too much of a scumbag. We can't like sweep it under the rug anymore. We want nothing to do with them. And that opened the floodgates. For every couple of days since this, like, a new Twitter longer has come out. So you have a bunch, I'm not going to go through all of these, but pretty much just saying like sexism is rampant on the server, tons of creepy guys are on the server, and a bunch of guys were getting banned, especially for like homophobia and transphobia. And more women came out saying that the server is like obviously has a sexism problem, and more people. And then, of course, when you have a whole bunch of like accusations, like every other day, a new accusation's coming out, you're going to have some people who like take advantage of that and make false accusations. But luckily, it seems like the false accusations are getting weeded out, so no one is getting like unjustly canceled, as far as we can tell. So the server was going on like a downward trend, like less and less people were playing. The server wasn't constantly full all the time. And then one of the biggest people on the server, at least viewer-wise, came out with an announcement.
I guess I can fully announce it. It's going to be myself, Kiwo, who some of you know, most of you don't, but she is the creator of Twitch RP, which I know a lot of you guys did come from, and Koil, and we were sort of brought in to try to get the PD up off its feet. And
what he's saying is Penta, Koil, and Kiwo are all leaving NoPixel and going to work on a new server, Ignite RP, all at the same time. And if you don't know, Penta and Koil are some of the most high-viewed cop streamers on NoPixel, and Kiwo has always been like behind the scenes doing like a lot of paperwork. She's like more of a serious RP. She's also taking like a lot of breaks from RP from NoPixel because she just couldn't deal with everything that goes on NoPixel anymore. And this was like, everyone's like, oh my god, NoPixel might actually be ending. Because if you don't know, like GTA RP servers like always end in one way. It happened with SOE, it happened with like the family RP, like there's always like huge egotistical egos at the top and they go too far and people quit, or there is just like a lot of drama and people end up trying to find like a less drama filled server. So it could be what's happening to NoPixel too, but I mean, it is so big, it might not fail because there's still a lot of big people on NoPixel. But I guess we'll see. NoPixel has been around longer than pretty much any other like big RP server. So going based on other servers, their life should be coming to an end if history is going to repeat itself again. But then you did also have some people saying like either they're going to quit playing NoPixel or they're going to move to Ignite as well, because they are also just sick of all the toxicity on NoPixel and the sexism and all that stuff. Now, if you don't know, Koil, who's the owner of NoPixel, is very DMCA happy. He DMCA's like entire subreddit, clip channels that paint him in a negative light. So I'm not going to show any of his clips. So you're just going to have to take my word for this is like what he said. If you don't believe me, you can find the clips. I'm just not going to put them in the video just in case it does blow up. I don't feel like dealing with that shit. But what caused also a lot of drama, because like who cares? Penta leaves the server, fine, get rid of him. Like a lot of people weren't happy with Penta. They didn't like him. They thought he was a dick. But then the server owner went on this weird 8-hour rant, and in it, he tried to compare Penta to RatedEpicz, saying that Penta on the server told a woman judge to suck his dick, and that made him like on the same level as Rated. And obviously a lot of people took issue with that, including Penta and including the woman involved in that RP scenario. And she just came out saying like, it's all bullshit. She's like, as the judge in said situation, crying and wanting to quit as a judge didn't happen. End of story. The server owner can spin whatever narrative they want. Not everything that happens in character is taken out of character. I wanted to quit for the situations I was berated for speaking out on last year. And I think she was the one who was like speaking out on how like, as a judge, she didn't really have free will to judge on cases how she wanted. She was constantly being pressured to like err on the side of being lenient to criminals. So luckily that accusation was kind of put to rest pretty quickly. And the funniest thing about this accusation, why I brought it up in the first place, was because before this, a guy called Dean So Cool came out saying that, oh, Penta will be back. I will bet $5,000 that Penta's going to be back. And Penta showed up in chat saying, I'll bet you, but before you take the bet, maybe DM me. So they got on a call together.
Because I'm putting it on black.
The thing
You
is,
said you got 5 racks.
yeah, I got 5 racks on it.
Okay,
Okay, but
let's do it.
Yeah, so he's saying, you want to bet that I'll be back to the server within 6 months? I'll bet $5,000. And if I win, I'll go to Vegas, put it on roulette. And if I win, I'll give you your money back.
no. Now I'm bringing that bitch down. I'm gonna bring that bitch down. I'm not gonna get finessed.
To what?
2.5.
All right. I mean, I'll take free money.
He's not going to get finessed when he's the one who brought up this bet out of the blue by himself. Like, Penta wasn't like trying to egg him on into the bet. This was just like a random thing he did by himself on stream. And as soon as he accepted, he walked it back real fast because it's pretty clear, especially after what Koil said about Penta, that Penta probably is going to be back to NoPixel. When someone accuses you as being as bad as someone who's had multiple women come out accusing them of being a creep in DMs, may not want to be on that server anymore. And then you had CG being the geniuses that they are crossing the line because they were saying like how, oh, who cares? Everyone who leaves the server now, they'll be back. NoPixel definitely isn't like falling apart and burning to the ground. They'll be back. But they crossed the line. And they said this, or Shotz said this.
99.6% of people that stream on NoPixel would not be where they are today if it wasn't for somebody like Kenny. And that is the problem. People don't realize where they come from. People don't think about where they were at one point in life when they were struggling and hard to get by.
Yeah, so if you don't know, Kenny is called Blue. He was a big guy on the server like years and years and years ago, and he's like one of the main reasons that Summit started on NoPixel because he was a mod for Summit. So when Summit came over, more and more streamers came over, and it caused like a massive blow up for the server. And he's saying that if it wasn't for Blue, the server wouldn't be what it is, and you people wouldn't have the careers you have. So you owe it to this server to stay loyal to the server. Who cares about my group's toxicity and the obvious sexism and the obvious issues with the server? You owe it to Blue. And the reason why this crosses the line, if you don't know, Blue died of an unintentional drug overdose. I guess he was partying on the July 4th weekend, and he accidentally overdosed. So there's like a memorial in NoPixel server to him and everything. And obviously Penta came out and saying this is messed up to try to guilt people into staying on the server and using someone's name who can't even like agree or disagree with how you're using it. And a bunch of his friends came out essentially saying the same thing. I didn't want to say anything because it might be misconstructed as drama baiting or calling people out, but I'm just going to say it because it's bothered me for years. People bring up Kenny/Blue, and it's actually disgusting. Where were you at his funeral? It was legit only him and Kimchi and myself as only NP NoPixel in attendance. Actually upsets me to this day, especially when people continue to use him as a pedestal during us versus them drama, especially since Blue was known for staying out of drama. He was just there for the RP. He's my dear friend, and I feel comfortable saying this. All I want to do is have a good time on the server and would not want to be an argument point for the community to be fractured. And I will say to Afro's point, Blue's funeral did happen during peak COVID, so there's like some legitimate reasons why people might have been there, but it was also streamed live, and a lot of people weren't on the live. And then after the backlash of Shotz being called kind of scummy for like using his name to try to like guilt people,
I'm just taking a mental break for my own good because with all this shit and like the people, the way I'm getting attacked and the way people are saying stuff about me, bro, saying I'm using Kenny's name like in a bad way, it actually fucked me up bad. So
the CG special, he's trying to act like the victim. He crossed the line. He doesn't want to take responsibility for his actions, just apologize, and people would move on and forget about it. Instead, he's going to try to act like the victim. Yeah, so it's pretty clear that all the drama on NoPixel is going to keep happening. It seems like the toxicity and the sexism is probably still going to keep happening because none of the people in charge of the server has changed. Now the question is whether or not NoPixel is going to exist at all. So Koil would have been served with these papers a couple of months ago, which is kind of interesting when you remember what Koil was saying. He was talking about how like, oh, maybe it's time for him to sell the server for millions of dollars because whoever buys the server will make that million's back easy, quickly, no problem. And he was talking about how much like, oh, Dean, everyone like talks so highly of Dean, but he actually really didn't do as much work as people believe. And it kind of makes sense why he all of a sudden is throwing Dean under the bus. Because he would have known a couple months ago that Dean is now suing him. So you can look at it for yourself. It's pretty dry, boring legal stuff. So what it first looked like happened was Dean like broke into, quote unquote, he had access to all of the code and information and people's personal information that NoPixel has, and stole it all and quit NoPixel, and no one heard from him since. At least that's what Koil was saying. Dean's defense now, or I guess I should call him DW because that's what he goes by. Dean is his in-character name. So what DW said was, I was actually fired, and I didn't know I was fired because no one communicated to me, which if you follow NoPixel at all, that makes sense because their communication with anybody is awful. And him taking all the personal information and all the server code and all that on his own personal computer is just like run-of-the-mill maintenance stuff that he's always done throughout his time in NoPixel, and it was never an issue. He didn't realize he was fired yet, so he was just doing his normal duties. And then Koil spun this weird narrative. And he tried to sue Koil/NoPixel for defamation as well, but I guess that got thrown out. But the two clauses that did stick. Luckily, Reddit summarized it all for you. The first clause, DW seeks compensation for the revenue generated by his code used by NoPixel since his departure, and requests that the court determine the ownership of the IP for the code he developed, as there was no written contract specifying ownership. And the second is, DW wants compensation for NoPixel breaking the agreement of paying him 50% of all NoPixel revenue. So apparently, he had an agreement with Koil/NoPixel saying that any money NoPixel makes, I get half. So he's essentially just getting asked for back pay that he wasn't paid out, which is like scummy of Koil/NoPixel if that's true, but isn't really going to cause much issue for the servers. What is going to cause issues is the first part. He's saying he wants the revenue generated by his code by NoPixel after he got fired because they were using essentially his code without his permission, essentially. Because there was never any contract saying who owns the code or not. So if you're running code that you don't own, any money should go to the person who owns that code. So he wants the court to figure out who owns the code. And I looked into this, and I'm not a lawyer, just full honesty, but usually what happens in these cases when someone is trying to figure out the ownership of the code, if there's no contract specifying, what happens is the person who wrote the code owns the code. So if the court rules that DW owns the code, depending how much code is in NoPixel, one, he could be getting a boatload of money, and two, he could either then charge Koil whatever he wants to continue using that code, or he could just shut down NoPixel himself. If like Koil can't remove all the code, it's that ingrained into NoPixel, you could just completely shut down the server. Now I'm going to go ahead and make a bunch of assumptions, and I'm going to say DW probably wouldn't do that because he may not like Koil or some of the other head people or some of the people on the server, but I don't know if he would want to destroy that server for so many of his other friends that he's still like friendly with and still DMs with. More than likely, he'll charge a fee for it, or Koil will go in and remove the code. There's all kinds of ways that this, like the first part could play out. Like it's just a guessing game at this point, but this could have like huge impacts on NoPixel and its future. So it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. And also kind of makes it funny that now it makes sense why Koil came out on such a hard stance against DW recently, because he's known about this for a while. So it makes sense that he was starting to talk more and more trash about DW, trying to like disparage him and make people not want to take his side. And if you made it this far in the video and you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing with your life?